Well, at this time, I invite Brother Stephen to come, and then in just a moment, the team to come, because they are the sermon this morning, and they have lived the sermon already. Brother Stephen.
First off, I want to thank everybody for everything y'all have done to get us to this point, whether it's prayers, whether it's financial giving, whether it's actually physically going with us, some behind-the-scenes stuff, or some people that I'm not mentioning names. To say thank you is not enough. I think each and every one of the youth that went, and some of our younger kids that went, I think some of it was an eye-opening. All I can say is if you go to the Ark Encounter, if you can't leave there saying, only God, I just don't know if there's anything you can say. I mean, the sheer everything behind that ark, the size of it, which we've got some pictures, and it still doesn't do the thing justice. I mean, this thing is massive. I mean, you look at it and it's like, how can an individual during that time build something so big? And you can only say God. There's no way around it. I mean, they built it to the dimensions that we were given in the Bible. But I don't want to give too much away. I'm going to let them do some speaking, and then I'll fill in where we need to. So, Miss Abigail said she wanted to be the first one. So, if you want to call her Giggles, that's okay too. What? See, she's giggling already.
First, I just want to say thank you to all the adults and helpers that came. We are very grateful for that. I remember last year, it was a lot harder to say goodbye to the kids, just because we didn't know what to expect or anything. This year, it was, don't get me wrong, I was still sad, but it was a lot. It was easier because I didn't know what to expect, but I got a lot closer with a lot of the kids this year because I kind of opened up more. There was this one girl on Monday. I can't say her name. Sorry. I remember her from last year, but I don't think she remembered me. But that's okay. I asked her what her favorite part was about Bible Club. And I mean, knowing kids, you would think they would say like games or music. But she said Bible story. It kind of brought joy to my heart because this girl, she liked learning more about Jesus and liked hearing about him. Sorry, this is a little random. Wednesday, this little boy, he was a handful. He was a really hard kid to handle. He would just randomly, go run or sit down. Then I would pick him up, and he would let me sometimes. And then when he wanted to get down, I would say, "You promise you won't run?" He said he promised. Well, I held out my pinky, and we did. He promised. He didn't run for a little bit. And then Wednesday, I picked him up again, and I said, "You promise you won't run?" He said yes, but this time I didn't held out my pinky. He did, so I grabbed it. But this time he didn't. That day he didn't run a lot like he did for the past 2 days. So it just kind of reminded me like not to give up on that kid because he was still little, and I know he probably don't like really understand or anything. So that's it.
Steve, I need your microphone on.
It is on. She just wasn't holding it very close. The boy's name was actually Christian. We can say his name. I believe it's the same little boy that I think we were talking about. And this boy had more energy than probably 14 nuclear bombs all wrapped up in one. And to say that he would run was an under... Caden, okay. I know we can say first name, we cannot say last name. But the only way I could pin him down was, us dads, we know all the tricks in the book. So I pulled out my cell phone and I had his undivided attention. And he was able to listen to the Bible stories, just, they weren't quite as in tune as us dads are when it comes to getting a kid's attention. So he actually sat with me the entire time during Bible Club. I think there was actually a picture taken of it. And I had him, he was right there listening to the Bible story the whole 9 yards. So it was rather cool though, but as soon as Bible study was over and everybody else didn't know the phone trick, he was back to nuclear bomb wrapped up, flying around. I don't know how the kid didn't pass out. He was like all over the place. But anyway, Sarah? Do you know how to hold this?
So in the afternoons we did mission projects, and Tuesday afternoon we went and prayed. We did a prayer story. We prayed over all the Bible Club sites. Well, not all, but 4 of them. And the last one we went to actually had a tree fall during bad weather that came the week before us. And so they weren't able to hold a Bible Club there. Well, all the boys and 3 of the girls went and actually cleaned up the tree for them to be able to have a Bible Club site there. But also, the kids at the Bible Club, a lot of them remembered us. And Alexa, which was on our route last year, actually, whenever she first saw me the day she came and gave me a big hug.
And I'll have more about the tree here in a minute. Jace? Don't fall on the floor.
So I remember we was that morning we didn't get no kids, and we didn't get no one. So we that afternoon we went to go pick up kids for our afternoon project and took them in the gym. And the first house we prayed, and then the first house we went to, the little girl said she couldn't come today, and the mom said she couldn't come today, and Brother Charles said, never lose hope. And then right after that, her mom said, actually she can come today, and she came running out there. And then I know Tuesday we got these 2 little boys. His name was Princeton and KD, and they were the goofiest little kids. They would talk about people. It was funny, but yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. Speechless. All right, Brooklyn. We may need another box of tissues.
Okay, so on the first day, last year, we were on Brownwell, and we didn't have no kids that whole week but one, but she would have been coming the whole week. And then this week, our max kids were 16 on our route. And we went, and me and Reagan were walking, and every day, some days, after Bible Club, we would take, I would take Kalani and she would take Abby, and we would put them on our back And the whole way home, we would go to their house. We'd play choo-choo trains with them, like on our back, or like airplanes, if that makes sense. And then for the afternoon project that we did, whenever we did go pray over the sites and stuff, there was a new site that opened up that hadn't been running. It hasn't been running for 9 years, and they just opened it back up. So they didn't have, as many kids, and so, yeah, that was a good experience too. And then at Bible Club, Caden, he had a little motorcycle type thing, yeah, and he was playing with it in the dirt or whatever, and this kid was so funny, I kid you not. And he was like so crazy. He was so funny. And then another girl that I mentioned earlier, Kaylani, she was more quiet. She was on our route. She was more quiet, and she was really smart, but she was really like super sweet. Like she was like a little angel. And last thing, another kid named Alex and his brother Ian, brothers. They were a little on the argumentative side, if that makes sense, in the nicest way possible. And so we had to do a little talking, and Isaac, he was kind of in that little crew also. So one way that I got a kid to calm down. Now this kid spits out his water, thinks it's funny, like kid, okay? And he, I asked him if he liked superheroes, okay? Because it's the only way to get, anyways. I asked him if he liked superheroes, and he said yes, right? So then I'm like, okay, so you like superheroes, so we gotta walk like a superhero, we can't run in the road, because it was kind of stressful when you have 3 kids that's kind of crazy, run in the middle of the road, you're like, oh, what if a car comes? What if this, what if that? Anyways, so yeah. It was a really good experience with it being my second year. You kind of go in knowing what to expect than last year. Last year was a lot more, it still broke my heart the same way that it did last year, seeing, all the people and their houses and everything else. But it was a really touching moment that, this year, we had a lot more kids, and in those 3 kids, I prayed for patience, because that's something that a bunch of, Christians struggle with and stuff like that. So I think those kids really helped me and showed me that God, He answered those prayers of patience, and it was just a really great experience to go. And I think everyone who did anything and everything that they could to let us go, it was a great blessing, and I pray we go back next year.
So we had to borrow a site leader to help run one of the routes, and we were able to run all but 2 routes that they normally would run. And they told me, they're like, well, we really need one of our site leaders instead of one of your leaders to help with this particular route, because we have a few extra kids on it. I'm like, okay. Well, then Brooklyn and them showed back up, and Brooklyn has this biggest smile on her face. I wish I would have had the camera out at that point in time, because they're like, oh, this is half of them, and there was like 100. It wasn't really that many, but it seemed like 100. And they're like, oh, well, this is just half. We'll be back in a few minutes with the other half. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I asked Brooklyn, I said, well, does it make up for last year not having any kids at all? And she's like, oh, more than you know. Because it's like every single day, they would have to go get half of them because there were so many, bring them in and come back and get the other half, which was absolutely amazing. So, Miss Malia. She's bringing her bottle. She's coming to preach.
I had to write my notes down because I would ramble, so I'm going to be writing. Dear Chunky Baptist Church family, thank you so much for allowing me to go on the youth trip to the Ark Encounter and to the mission field in Memphis, Tennessee at Street Reach. It was an amazing experience. We walked the streets, and the highest number we had on my route was 12 kids. My route group was Leela, Caitlin, and Maddox. They were all troopers and did great each and every day. It was so sad to see the type of environment these kids were living in and growing up in. Trash covering the streets, drugs and alcohol, etc. Yet every morning they would run out to my group and give us hugs, fist bumps, and high fives. We were the highlight of their days and even their week. One of the first girls I met on my route was named Malia, just like me. She was the last one to be dropped off and the first one I picked up. I couldn't believe there was one name the same as me. I knew God was revealing to me that this is where I needed to be this week. Justice was another one of my kids on my route, and he was holding my hand or riding my back the whole way. The second or third day, he asked if it was Friday yet. I said no, 3 more days, and he continued each day. He says, when Friday comes, you leave, right? I said yes, and he said, can I come with you? I said, you can't come to my house. I said, but maybe I can see you next year. He said, do I have to wait a long time? I said, I'm not sure, and then he got quiet as we walked a little bit further, and he said, well, I guess I will get to see you again one day with Jesus. I hugged him tight and said, I will be there. It's my prayer that we all planted seeds this week and that God touches all the hearts of those children like he did mine. I'm so thankful that God left the 99 for me and saved my soul. As far as the Ark encounter, I'd say seeing how big the Ark was showed me that we serve a big God who loves us so much that he told Noah to build an ark to save humanity and his creation by having each creature enter the ark. Street Reach can take place right outside the doors of Chunky, Mississippi, just like in Memphis. We are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus regardless of any situation. And I want to leave you with this verse. 1 Peter chapter 4, 9 and 10. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good as stewards of God's varied grace. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Jaden.
So before I start talking, I just want to let y'all know that I really want to tell y'all my testimony today and how that really tied into Street Reach and me helping these children. 9 years ago today, I was being taken from my forever home by Department of Human Services. I was being put back with the people and reason they took me. Back to parents, too addicted to drugs, to even think about caring for me. For example, I was so severely neglected that I was diagnosed with autism, but I do not have autism. What normal 4-year-olds could do, I couldn't. Like chewing, using the bathroom, and talking, etc. I praise God that Melissa and Colby and a DHS worker named Ms. Kenyatta fought for me. That day that I got taken from my forever home, they thought was the end, but God saw at the new beginning. I'm so thankful that I had my family to support and teach me, and just help me blossom throughout the years. And they still do to this day. I'm so glad that I could be on this trip with y'all. I have a special place in my heart for all these children and what they're going through. And it just makes me heartbroken that some of these children could be going without it through. And one way that on the very last day, one of the children just absolutely broke my heart because Sarah Brooke isn't here, I don't think, but she asked one of the little girls that we were dropping off, said, "Are you ready to go home to mom and dad?" But the poor little girl said, "Oh, dad's not home, he's in jail." And I know exactly what that feels like. It wasn't even my biological father, it was just some horrible person. And I'm done.
Reagan.
First off, I'm definitely going to start with something funny. So one day when we did our afternoon project, let's just say we got to see Brother Charles run track again. We had a kid that Brother Charles asked him if he liked to run, and he shouldn't have done it. He took off running into a very busy street, but Brother Charles also took off running as fast as he did, maybe a little faster, and it was very funny. But also, we went to the house where we got Ashley from, not Ashley, one person, Abby from, but one of her little sister was too young to come to Bible club, and she got so upset because she couldn't come to Bible club. Like, she started bawling her eyes out and stuff just because she couldn't come. And seeing kids get upset because they can't come to Bible club it truly speaks. And also, the Abby girl, when we first went to pick her up, she didn't really want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to get on anybody's back. She wasn't really excited about Bible club. But the very last day when we went to pick her up, I think everybody saw how excited she was, not just to see all of us, but mainly me because she got so attached. And when she saw our group walking to pick them up, she had the biggest smile a child has ever had on their face. She took off running pretty much across the street to give me a hug, and then she started jumping to get on my back, and she was just really excited. And then when she left, she started crying. I think she knew that it was Friday.
Miss Kira. Hopefully it's more than one word. Like, okay. Or yes.
So last year I walked with this boy named Leo, and he had a single mom with like a lot of kids, and they had to have the school donate them shoes and a police officer bring them food. And I remember this year I was sitting down and he ran up and hugged me, which was really surprising because he's the kind of boy who, like, if you want to hold his hand, he'll be like, I'm not a baby. And like he'll just be making fun of people. But that was really sweet. I think he remembered me. Yeah. There were also these little 4-year-olds that didn't even know English. They only spoke Spanish, but they would still, like, they didn't even know what my name was. They didn't know anything about me. But they would always want to go ride on my back and like hug on me. And like I would open their lunch and help them. And like they didn't even know who I was. But they would just like hug up on me, and they were probably living in a really bad situation. Which really shows like it's good that we get to go do Bible club for these kids, so they get a couple hours where they get a meal that the parents don't have to worry about. They get a couple hours without having to smell cigarette smoke everywhere. They get a couple hours to learn about Jesus and get some toys and a Bible. We gave them a Bible. And that's it.
I told you she can say more than one word. All right, last but not least, before we watch the slideshow, because they're all going to need Kleenexes. Gabe, where are you at? Oh, there he is.
Sorry, he's a big head, you know. All in the corner. I probably forgot what it's like to stand up now. You stand in front of a bunch of people and talk. For the Good enough, maybe? How do you all people do this? So, the Ark Encounter. Fun. Great. Story time with Brother Moore. Every step of the way. Ask him about it sometime. He'll be in his office for like 5 hours before he gets halfway through the story. But you're right. It was a fun experience. When he got fact checked and he was wrong. He said it was 7 clean and 7 unclean, but he was wrong. It was 7 clean and 12 unclean.
Makes you look.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Fact check. Do it. And more on the tree that fell on one of the sites. Oh, it was difficult. We bench pressed the tree. Okay. Moving the tree was fun. It was hot. We almost had a heat stroke collectively. I got to hold somebody because they were trying to use a chainsaw on a really unstable part of the tree. I also picked up like a 4 foot long, like 2 feet wide piece of a tree and throw it, which was fun. At the end of it, I got to climb on the tree to make sure none of the children would it'd break under any of the children, which was fun. I got legal permission to climb on a tree. Yeah. No.
Somebody's getting mouth to mouth. So we put together a little slideshow with a really good song that I thought really fit the kids, not our kids, but the kids at our site. And I would encourage y'all to go look up the lyrics of the song, and it's You Are Loved. So Lance.
Broken souls with smiling faces, fighting for surrender. For now and the after, yeah. Just look around and you see that people are scared to say how they really feel. Oh, we all need a little honesty, yeah. You are loved in 1,000 pieces. If you're lost and you're far from reason, just look up, know you are loved. Just look up, know you are loved. It feels like something's missing. If it hurts but you can't find healing, just look up, know you are loved. Just look up, know you are loved. When I need to be superhero,
that song really close. To me, it meant so much to me to listen to it. It'll make me cry. But the whole object of the whole week is for those kids to understand, to look up, because they are loved. Regardless if it's us, regardless if it's the next group, regardless if it was the group before us. We do this because we love them, because Jesus told us to go love them. It's amazing to watch these kids work. It's amazing to say that I get to be their youth pastor, because they were bragging on all week. And then I got to brag a little bit more. So the tree, everybody's talking about this tree. That was a massive oak tree. They took out one of their biggest sites. They were only able to run 2 of the 4 things. They like to run Bible study, they like to run crafts, they like to run music, they like to run games. Well, they had to take this site and trim it back to just 2 Bible study and basically crafts. Well, when we went and did our prayer walk, he was telling us about this, and he told us the backstory about it. And when he told us the backstory, I'm like, we've got to do something. So the backstory on this used to be a car lot. Somebody bought it out from under Street Reach and turned it into a car lot. Well, what you don't see is 2 houses down is Grandma's house. Grandma's kids were so touched by what Street Reach was doing. Grandma took money and went and bought the car lot out from under the car lot to make it back Street Reach. Because her 2 grandkids were so influenced by what it actually led to their salvation, because of what Street Reach was doing. She wanted to get back to Street Reach. Well, here's the site that was shut down. They weren't going to be able to run it for the next 3 or 4 weeks the way they really wanted to run it. They were going to have to reduce the number of kids. So I told Brother Charles, I said, I want to go and find out if we can cut this tree up. Well, we were first told no, because they didn't have a working chainsaw. They didn't have enough chainsaws and all that stuff. And I said, well, that's not an excuse. We've got the money, we've got the financial means to do it. The only excuse we have now is that the landowner says, no, we can't cut it up. So I went to the guy over Street Reach and I said, Jason, I said, I've got some young men that would love to go and cut this tree up. He's like, well, we don't have a working chainsaw. I said, no, you didn't understand what I said. We want to go cut this tree up. And he's like, well, let me get with the guy, or Ben, who was our guy who took us on our prayer walk. And he said, let me go talk to the landowner and see what the landowner has to say. Well, the landowner gave us the green light. Within 2 minutes of giving us the green light, I went to Lowe's, bought a chainsaw that was on sale, and then Austin's lovely 10% off. And then I said, we're going to split our group up. I'm going to take all the guys plus 3 girls. We put 12 and then put 13 left at the site to do what it needs to do. And within an hour and 30 minutes, we took that very first picture. And if you go to the next slide, that's where the tree was. And we had opened it all the way up back to where it was in an hour and 30 minutes. An hour and 30 minutes. They told us, and that's one chainsaw. One chainsaw, 12 people, an hour and 30 minutes. And God's angels and God now helping us get that tree out so we could open that up for those kids. And with it all said and done, I was talking to Brother Charles and I said, there's a need here. Number one, we met the first need, and the second need is there's trees on other sites. They have no working chainsaw. So when we got done, they now have the possession of a 20-inch brand new chainsaw that was used an hour and a half to cut the tree to go finish cleaning up the rest of their sites so they can run what they need to run to love on these kids.
The pastor of Brinkley Heights Church, Pastor Tim, no, I will not try to mimic his laugh. I will forget that laugh. You can mimic it if you want. Thank you. He made the challenge to all of us to look for Jesus in the moments. Look for Jesus in the people that you're ministering to. And so I did. And so as we prepare our hearts for invitation, let me just share you this one illustration. and what I took from that, my Jesus moment. Did you know that Jesus likes to run? Yeah. Jesus was in the form of a little boy, 5, maybe 4 years old. His name is Noah. Reagan alluded to it a moment ago. And so we were the afternoon route. One of the staff members asked, because it was going to be a long route and a hot route, meaning really, really hot, and it was going to be the hardest route. So I got my team, the red team, which was Jace and Sarah Tapley and Kara, and we walked that route. My mantra for the whole week: we don't give up, we don't quit, we don't lose hope, and we never surrender except to Jesus Christ. And so we walk that route. And I also tell them, I said, we don't do things because they're easy, we do them because they are hard, and who else is there? So we walked, picked up the little boy, and it was all right at first, but I could tell we were going to be herding cats. So I'd already made up my mind I was going to get some other people to help me walk them back after we were done for that Tuesday afternoon. So I asked Brother Steve to get some other youth that weren't busy, and I think we added Olivia, Ann, and who else? There was one other person, and Gabe. To that route to walk them back. So little Noah, I'm with him, and he's rambunctious, and I might have said, "Man, you like to run." Wrong. At that point, he bolts and runs, and he's headed straight to the street. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Once a dad, always a dad. I'm always on duty. I didn't think twice. And I took off after him. I haven't used that type of speed with that type of form since 1986 when I ran 1,600-meter relay. Okay, I got to him, grabbed him, and yanked him back and everything. And of course, he then turned around because he didn't just bolt and run once, not twice, but thrice. Okay, second time, there he goes, and here's a car turning in. Thankfully, I got to him again. Life grip on him, and then one of the staff members came up and had a come to Jesus meeting with him that I didn't have to. And he says, if you want to come back and be part of the Street Reach, the Bible Club, you're going to have to be holding it. So he was letting me hold his arm. So we gathered our crew and off we went. I was trying to keep it light. I said, man, I said, you really run fast. I said, I used to run track. And I said, so it's really amazing. Just trying to keep it light. So we walk. And we walk. And some of the other kids are straggling and doing their little thing. One or two not wanting to walk. And so I've been letting the other half of the team do that because I have my eyes on Noah, who, unlike his namesake, was not listening to anything. Okay. So we get to the last street. He bolts again, this time out into a much bigger road with much more cars. And again, I had to fling myself out, not knowing who's coming, who's going, grabbing him, and I didn't let him go, period. And so we got to the house, and Olivia, I was going to put him on my back. Olivia said, no, Brother Charles, your back is sore because my lower back gives out a lot. So she picked him up, she carried him, we got him home, and I was thinking, thank you, Jesus. Okay? But I thought about that. I thought about how many times do you and I, how many times do we, we bolt and run from God's will for our life because we want to do our thing, our way, and our time. So we bolt and run without listening to Jesus. And how many times does Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, has to call us down, yank us back? But aren't you grateful and aren't you thankful that Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, has a life grip on you? It's a Hebrew word for that. It's called chesed, pronounced hesed, which means a grip of grace, and He ain't letting go. Your invitation is this. As we stand and sing our invitation, He is the way maker, and He's making a way for you today. The altar is open. You come and make your way to the way maker, whatever that may be for you. You come.